I'm Steve Carter. I've been in the recruitment industry now for 37 years and started at a desk running perm business in accounting and finance in Sydney, in Australia. And have been really fortunate to travel the world in recruitment. In fact, I often say that when a lot of people get into the recruitment industry, they're told about the amazing opportunity to travel, to do so many amazing things. And in fact, I've been very fortunate that I've actually experienced the vast majority of that. I feel very lucky. And for that reason, I'm really committed to the industry to make it a better place, to help you as leaders in the recruitment industry become better at your jobs. And I've seen it from both the ground level all the way through to boardroom. And I've been fortunate to be at the board level with global businesses. Um, and that's shown me things about the industry that I really, really like, but it's also highlighted a number of things that I think need to be done to make it a better place, to make it more productive, to make you as a leader more effective, and to help the industry move forward in a wider sense. So I wanted to touch on some of those things today in this webinar, hopefully get you thinking about things a little bit differently and not just following the way of the past, because it's inevitable things need to change. So there's no particularly important or relevant place to start, but I will start with the idea of value adding. Um, the world's changed a lot with all the new technology, with competing models in recruitment, including RPO, MSP, direct sourcing models, globalization, borderless employment. So there's a lot of people competing in the one space to try and grow their own recruitment portfolio. So you have to understand where you add value. It's no longer value adding just to provide candidates. That's just too easy. Nearly everybody's got access to free or very cheap technology that can help you do that. So there's no mystery in finding candidates for jobs anymore. It's about the value. It's finding the right candidate, the people that you can add value to the process by understanding them, having met them, really understand them better. And as a leader, you've got to get your teams working that way. Simply finding candidates in isolation isn't a skill in itself, because there's too many other alternatives out there where people are trying to compete with you in the same space. So start to identify where your value added is. How do you and your team provide value to your customers? Is it specialization? Is it global? Is it local? Is it very niche? Is it you're all previous professionals from outside of recruitment? Is it your speed to market? What are the things that differentiate you where you're going to add the value? And I think once you establish that, you can start to build around it. When you look at the structure of most recruitment agencies, particularly if you are a manager at the moment, you need to look at why do most layers of management actually do the same thing. I operate as a non-exec and board advisor to quite a lot of recruitment businesses, and I'm involved in the UK at industry level. And it's very frustrating when you look at the amount of waste in terms of expertise, where one manager is simply checking the work of another manager who is checking the work of another lower level manager or a consultant. And unfortunately, that sort of duplication or triplication of effort is often focused on purely numerical measurement of the business, and people's careers are determined by whether they hit those targets or they don't. And one of the things that you need to consider is how do you actually get people doing different things that complement each other in order that you get the most effective management team and team structure for your business. So again, a takeaway from this is to sit back and look at what managers do within a recruitment company in order to make sure that they're all doing things that are effective and complementary and collaborative, but not just bigger versions of the same thing. I often say to people, if I started a recruitment agency from scratch today, the first person I'd hire would be someone who focuses on data. And I think as a leader in a recruitment business, you need to look at data very seriously. You need to understand the metrics on how your business operates. For example, If you know that when you get one interview on a job, you fill 15%, but two interviews, you fill 25%, three interviews, 30, four interviews, 40, then the question would be, why are your processes not aligned to driving four interviews per vacancy? Because you know you fill a higher percentage. And that's just a very straightforward, simple example of how a data led strategy means you can start to understand the performance behaviors in your business and start to design the processes around them in order that you just get more return on the investment. So the data is not only important from the analysis of metrics, the data is important when it comes to looking at where you're focusing your team's effort, the sort of markets, um, and in fact, the quality of the data that the consultants are contributing to the database each and every day via their interactions with customers, candidates, and each other. So the database becomes a very valuable asset and tool within the business and something that you need to nurture and develop. So I know a lot of consultants complain about data and managing the database and how relevant or important is it. But increasingly, as technology becomes more advanced and AI and other technology becomes an important factor on how you operate your business, it will need that data in order to optimize its performance. So you need to work on that data and understand the very specific metrics about how your particular business and your particular team function and what those success metrics are. It's not just about more calls, more visits, and more CVs. I mean, that's back to the 90s. This is a much more sophisticated look at how does data work and why does data become so much more important to you in your business. I want to talk about branding and individual and group branding or business branding as well. Um, for consultants to be really effective, they need to be trusted insiders within the community they serve. And therefore, they need to be very proactive about building a personal brand. And that's just not bombarding LinkedIn with jobs. That's about content. That's about taking active roles within the communities that they work with. It's contributing to discussion, to debate in those industries, and getting to know people and being active in that community. A trusted insider is not seen as a predator. And on social media and within business communities, we as recruiters are too often seen as predators, and therefore we get externalized. So the most efficient, effective people in recruitment are those that are trusted within the communities they serve. Therefore, their personal brand plays a huge part in how that works. Similarly, the corporate brand is also important because the way the world works now with social media and online content and digitization of assets, people trust brands and make consumer choices based on what they see or what they perceive to be true. And recruitment is no different. It's a service. So, because it's a service, people determine which service they buy or consume from what they read, what they see, what they hear from reviews, from testimonials, and from referrals. And so, you've got to focus on your brand because, as I said at the start, just throwing candidates at clients is no longer good enough. That is just simply not going to create the value stream you need. And you need to build a brand that people know, that people trust, that's easily identifiable as the right place to go for the service. So please work on your brand as a company and help your teams and yourself work on your individual brand to build that trusted insider status. I want to talk about structure again just for a second because it's such an important way for recruitment companies to operate. In fact, it's been the bedrock of recruitment in terms of a lot of consultants in a room doing okay still adds up to a pretty decent result. But one of the things that's problematic in recruitment agencies is what is called a single point of failure. And that's where you've got one person working a market. So you might have one person doing perm in a market or one doing contracting, or you may have 5 different specialist desks, each with one person. And my strong advice would be don't do that. either double up and have at least two in each of those segmented parts of the business, or don't do it at all. Having single points of failure means that if it goes wrong and that person leaves, or they're on holiday, or they have an extended absence, you're technically not in that market. So all your investment in getting into that space is gone. So look at single points of failure and actually try and rationalize those. Now, the temptation always is for entrepreneurs to go wider, faster. I've seen so many people that meet people and say, I'm hiring that person, going to start a new desk for me. Don't start a new desk until you've got some level of depth on the old desk. Otherwise, you will end up with a series of single points of failure, and you'll create all sorts of pressure for you in the business, and you'll be in and out of markets, wasting marketing money, wasting time, and more importantly, doing reputational damage to your business. So avoid single points of failure. I wanted to touch on structure in a different way because this gets, I get this discussed with me all the time about 360 versus 180 versus any other derivative of that, from sourcing to delivery to BD. And you know what? There's no particularly right answer, and there's no formulaic response that fits across all agencies. And in fact, all of these models can coexist in one business. So, for example, very experienced and tenured recruiters who are able to generate or have great relationships with certain client portfolios, who are trusted by the candidate community, may naturally gravitate to 360. They can operate really independently, they're mature enough to handle it, and they don't really want to start to share that out, and their customers and candidates don't want them to either. So that can easily sit alongside an organization that has dedicated sales and business development and account management people and resourcing or delivery consultants. So don't get fixated on the idea that you have to have one model or the other. You can blend these things up so you're playing to the strengths of your team. It's also very dependent on the markets you operate in, because certain markets where the process is replicatable and you can identify the 3 or 4 parameters by which someone to recruit, and it's repeat, 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 you have the flexibility to introduce different structures that allow you to process candidates coming into the business in a different way, maybe using more automation, maybe using chatbots, but you actually get a much quicker, faster process flow where the client's value proposition is not aligned necessarily to best available, but it might be the speed you can get them at. So again, you need to think about and work backwards from what is the solution what is the problem you're trying to solve in order to decide what structure works for your business. I think there are up and coming theories and strategies, not just in recruitment, in the wider business world, because of technology, remote working, etc., about task focus. And I think in recruitment, this has huge application. So, for example, looking at a job and breaking it down into tasks may mean that you can hire different types of people to do different aspects of the role or different tasks within the role. And one way to think about this is that, if you go and buy a refrigerator, the person that sold it to you doesn't deliver it and doesn't install it and doesn't repair it. They're all different people because they are different tasks. And the people that do those jobs are all excellent at that task. So in recruitment, traditionally we had 360s that are expected to be able to do every aspect of the job really well. And then sometimes we break it in half and we break it into delivery and business development. But within those, there's still a lot of tasks. So maybe one thing to think about is what tasks are best done by what type of person? Or in fact, what tasks are best done by technology and not a person at all? And where do I focus my human talent so they add the most value to the process and they get involved with the customer on things that only humans can do well, like innovate, build trust, share a sense of humor, create, and technology is good at process. So start to think about the breakdown of a job in recruitment into tasks. The other thing to think about is that business development is a much maligned term that most people shy away from. But actually, let's break this down, because business development is an area or several areas all glued together by that one term, and it doesn't do it justice. So within things like business development, you've got account management. So how do you look after those really important customers and make sure you don't lose them? I work with companies now that have got people that specialize in turnaround. So they've got particular consultants that look at turning around business that may have lapsed or been lost in the past, because they're rich sources of revenue if you can get those customers back. So think about turnaround. Think about lead generation. Again, it's not uncommon in other sectors for people to be out there generating leads, and it's a fairly blunt instrument, but in recruitment, it's important that you've got people out there at pace, chasing the opportunities where your technology or your consultants or both can start to turn those into opportunity. So, and you've got enterprise level sales where you've got people out there developing long-term relationships with more sophisticated products and services, or in fact, across multi-geography, multi-discipline. So start to think about business development and break it down into the specialist areas and not just lump it under one umbrella title, because that isn't helping you attract the right people, and it's not helping you get the right level of effectiveness out of the group. Something else to consider, which is really controversial, is rewarding behavior and not outcomes. So recruitment traditionally is an industry where you get commission or bonus based on the amount of revenue you generate. But that revenue is generated because of a process. And I would argue that if you reward excellence in the process, then people will execute the process better, and you will in fact get more revenue. And a good example of that, and two sides of the same coin, is that if you incentivize consultants to create interviews, so part or some or all of their commission is based around the number of interviews they generate in a period, a month or a quarter, if they hit that interview target, they will generate more fees, unless they're doing something terribly wrong, and then I'd have an issue with managers and what they're doing to inspect and coach and encourage people to do things in the right way. But nevertheless, broadly speaking, if you rewarded the behavior of generate more interviews, then you would make more money. Similarly, making sure consultants have adequate job inventory to fill, or they have the right level of candidates. But keeping it simple and starting to reward behavior and not outcomes is a game changer in terms of how you generate revenue. Similarly, there are other variations of that around team reward, around incentivizing the development of new client relationships or turnarounds, but you can be creative within the world of reward in recruitment. It's also important to consider the wastage. So, for example, a consultant who is a big biller may generate the most vacancies, but rarely, because they hit target, does anybody examine what they waste. So when you're looking at your business, when you're rewarding people, if someone fills 3 jobs a month, they're probably at a director's lunch, they probably want a trip to Vegas if they do it every month of the year, in spite of how many opportunities they may have lost. Because they're experienced, because they're talented, they've probably created more jobs, and at a 30% fill rate with 10 jobs a month, they're wasting 7. But those big billers generate more jobs, so they're probably wasting 10 to 20 jobs a period, rather than, and we're not focused on that, we're focused on what they fill. So I would encourage you to start looking at wastage and the work not done, and how do you actually make money out of that waste, and how maybe you link reward to the efficiency of behavior and not just the fees. So if someone has a high fill rate, they potentially earn more than someone who has a low fill rate, even if their fees are the same. So there's lots of ways to get creative with reward in recruitment, to make sure it's fit for purpose and rewarding the right behaviour. Similarly, incentives, that's a whole other area we could talk about forever, but making sure your incentives are fit for purpose. It's 2023. It is not okay that every incentive involves drinking the bar dry. We're a much more diverse and inclusive and accessible industry now, and we need to make sure that incentives are fit for people with families based on their gender, their faith, their age, their geographic location, their remote working habits. All those types of things are important to consider. So don't underestimate the importance of the culture that creates to bring your team together. The final thing I want to talk about in this session is really about people and about how you acquire talent into your business. Now, this is the Achilles heel for most agencies, and attrition doesn't help that any further because we lose a lot of the people we bring in, that we invest time, effort, and training in, only for those people to either leave us before we're ready or to fail because we haven't managed them properly. So I always believe if we hire someone, we spend a lot of time sort of flirting with them to get them in the door. And then if they fail, my question is, what did we as leaders do to allow that person to fail? Because I don't think anybody comes to work to do a bad job. So therefore, what didn't they understand about the process? What didn't they understand about what was required? And how do we help coach those people? One of the things we do that is contributory to people failing is that in recruitment, there's this crazy idea that when you come into the business, you're not allowed to do the job. You can only do bits of the job until you kind of earn the right to do the whole job. So effectively what we do, we take someone who's super excited about joining an agency, who sees the opportunity, and then we stick them at a desk, we plug them into a screen, and we kick the life out of them until they just leave or fail. Grab that person while they're excited about the opportunity and let them loose. Let them run. It's not that complicated what we do. Let that person with all that enthusiasm, with coaching, with a manager nearby, with colleagues around them, let them fail. I think Zuckerberg says fail fast. Well, in recruitment, let that enthusiastic newcomer fail fast, because then you're not driving that enthusiasm out of them. Where do you find these people? Well, as an industry, we've got a bit of a reputation, whether it's deserved or not, and it's moved from good to bad, keeps changing. But if you take on board my point previously about tasks and how you break a job down, maybe we wouldn't be looking all the time to steal each other's people. Maybe we wouldn't have to pay premiums for kind of burned out recruiters. Maybe we wouldn't be relying on graduates or entry-level early stage staff who really don't add a lot of value to the process because they've got no knowledge. So if you think about the task, maybe it opens up new talent pools to you. Maybe that opens up talent pools of people that work in customer service, telesales, real estate. Maybe it's someone who just cares and wants to go through the interview process in a lot more detail, or someone who's excellent with technology. But recruitment's an opportunity. And I think the longer you can help someone maintain it as an opportunity, then the more enthusiastic and successful they become. And what we can't do as leaders is contribute to the fact it becomes a job. Because when recruitment becomes a job, it's very difficult. It's a hard slog every single day to get motivated. And we've got to keep the opportunity alive for people. So think about the way you recruit. Think about your messaging. Be open-minded to other people. Because one of the great failings in most agencies is that, let me explain it this way. If I started a football team from scratch and I had an open trial on the weekend, and the first 11 people that attended the training were goalkeepers, then I couldn't select those people because there's no combination of skill. Or if I did try to put a team out of 11 goalkeepers, we would lose every week. It's about the combinations of people you bring together. So you need to think about how that team structure works. Now, in recruitment, we're very good at recruiting the same person profile over and over again. And then we get confused that team spirit equals teamwork. And that's not the case. Most recruitment agencies have amazing team spirit and very little teamwork. There's not a lot of collaboration, there's not a lot of sharing, and that links back to the reward structure. So, why am I talking about this for the last 25 minutes? It's because I care about how agencies move forward. I think we're facing some substantial challenges from alternative delivery models like RPO, MSP, direct sourcing, as I mentioned. Um, we've always got downward price pressure because our clients believe that additional technology or competition means that they can pay less for better service, and that's not the case. And I just think that with technology coming to the market, including AI, it's starting to take out some of the tasks that consultants spend so much time on. I mean, nothing more heartbreaking for me than walking into a recruitment agency and watching a highly skilled communicator stare at a screen for 4 hours, like something magic's going to happen. That's just not the case. So we just have to think about things a bit differently. And that's what I'm all about. I believe in positive change for the sector so we become stronger and better and we don't become extinct or people don't undervalue what we do. So the 2030 program we're designing is going to be a series of podcasts, coaching, tips, tricks, mentoring. And for those that subscribe to the service, we'll be doing virtual board sessions, roundtables, detailed one-to-ones, all with the concept and idea that we're going to help you become better leaders and managers in recruitment. We're going to open your mind to new ways to do things so you don't have to be the same as everybody else. You don't have to just accept that grandparented how to run a recruitment agency is true. And we're going to incorporate some new practices, some of the best of the old stuff, and we're going to start to develop a new way of doing things in recruitment. So I hope you found this kind of thought-provoking. I understand I focused on a lot of the stuff that's wrong with recruitment, but also I hope you can start to look at solutions in your own business. This may have prompted some thoughts around things you could do a bit better, but please reach out. Please check out the series of content because I'm sure it's going to help you. And, really look forward to working with you in making the recruitment agency market a much better, more successful opportunity and a better place for everybody else. And those that come after, I'm sure it's going to be an exciting journey, just like mine has been, and probably some of you as well. So thanks for listening, and look forward to catching up with as many of you as possible.